Hello, 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 and welcome to the new season, the 2021-2022 season, hopefully the post-COVID season of the Premier League and CheapSeats as well. And so today we'll be talking a lot about the FPL. The season starts on Friday. We'll get into those team ambitions and who signed who in the off-season trades in the weeks to come. There's lots to talk about that from a CheapSeats perspective. But because FPL starts on Friday, we thought we'd give you something to help you kind of acclimatize and figure out. The drafts are all going around. I've done a draft already on Monday. Looks pretty good, if I say so myself. But the most important thing is that league format, because in the draft there's no money. Here there is money. And it's 100 million, and you need to find a way to spend it. So I've got Cyrus and I've got AB. But before we do anything, please do like and subscribe and switch on that notification button. I'm going to cover AB's face for a little bit. And
Only AB's complaining about that.
Whoever's at the bottom gets hidden. But yeah, so let's get going, gents. Cyrus, how are you doing?
Very well, and Paul, very well. It's going to be an interesting season ahead. And if I say so, and I must say so, champions of Europe, we know what we are. I think it's going to be a good one. I'm really excited about all things Chelsea. But having said that, I'm really excited about the league itself. There's going to be some really interesting things happening. And I think there's going to be some surprise packages, as there always are. I think this season is going to be one that's going to be quite hotly contested, and there's going to be some very surprising things coming out of my mouth soon.
Same here. I've got some things. I have a team that's close to my heart. But AB, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm really excited about this FPL season. A little bit confused. I think we're all a little bit worried about the strikers area. I'm excited that United have signed Sancho and we're waiting on Varane. Hopefully a centre defensive midfielder comes in. But yeah, I mean, last week United played Everton in a friendly in front of fans. It looked good. It was nice seeing fans back.
Maguire scoring goals, eh?
Jeez, guys, it's coming home.
And that free kick.
The last time you heard that was definitely not a good time.
Yes, I think whoever's going to take it's coming home moniker, yeah, it's not. Just do that. Unless you're Italian. Yes, because you sweep everything. Even the 100 meter, the 4x100.
So Jorginho winning Ballon d'Or? He must be, surely.
And he should be in your FPL team at 6 million. Very nice price for Chelsea's #1 penalty taker, unless if Lukaku wants to take that. But gents, so today it's simple. It's early FPL must-haves, bargains, and differentials. How it's going to go is each section, goalkeeper, midfield, and defenders, and also strikers, will be talking about the different guys you want to have, you're thinking of having, to give our viewers, our listeners, a bit of a taste of where they can go to find value or to hide. So, for instance, me, I'm a Brentford man. I'm going to start with the goalkeepers. And off the bat, my must-have is David Raya. I wanted him at Arsenal last season. He was going to cost Arsenal 25 million. They didn't want to pay. But David Raya is my guy at 4.5 to sit in those goals for the next, I think, for the entire season. And I'm hoping, honestly, I'm hoping I can get 140 plus point season from him. I know that there's a lot of guys. I know Martinez is highly wanted. Foster, and yeah, Foster from Watford was an interesting one. He's the second highest. But who are your must-have goalkeepers, Cyrus?
So I've gone with Martinez because he was really good. Price-wise, it's fantastic, and Villa did quite well last season in terms of keeping clean sheets. But so I've gone with him in my team, and I'm tentatively playing this season. It will subject to early retirement, as always with these things. I get so frustrated. But the other goalkeeper that I'd want people to keep an eye on is Guaita from Crystal Palace, because I think Palace might actually be a little better at the back this season, and he's generally a good selection. And if you look at it, he's a bit of a differential, because there's only sort of 5.8% who've selected him in their teams. So if you're looking for that the goalkeeper, the other one for me, and I'm sure this is probably going to stamp all over AB's stuff, is probably Robert Sanchez at Brighton as a sort of backup. But I still think Guaita is a better selection, because I think Brighton, after selling Percy Tau, are definitely going down. We've turned our backs to them. And, but
Well,
the other thing is selling
they signed
Ben
a
White.
Japanese kid who's also going out on loan to Anderlecht as well. So similar to Percy Tau. So yeah, they must go down.
Yeah. I just don't see it. The problem with a lot of the stuff in the league these days has been your newly promoted teams aren't as good as they have been in the past, and so it's saved the likes of Brighton, Newcastle, and a few of those others who've been absolutely horrendous for years. But this could be the season where one of those sort of mainstays goes down. I don't think it's Burnley. I do think it might be Brighton, even though people love Graham Potter. They just don't have much of a squad. So I wouldn't necessarily choose a Brighton goalkeeper, though he would probably give you a lot in terms of getting saves and points.
As Tempo says here, he's a tried and tested 4.5 option, and that's how I've gone with my second keeper. So my two are Raya and Sanchez. It's cheap. It's guys who are going to play the entire season, unless if somehow that Australian makes his way back into that starting 11, which is going to throw everybody for a loop. AB, is your must-have Sanchez, or are you going with a Hendo, the United version?
No, so yeah, I've got Sanchez and Guaita, just because for goalkeepers you got to go 4.5.
Ask about Guaita quickly.
Yeah,
with the signing of Alphonse. Oh no, wait, Guaita's Crystal Palace. So it's okay. So it's Fabianski.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I kept on
so
Ariola's at Crystal Palace.
No, exactly. I mean, you got to look at their fixtures. I think Brighton have easier fixtures. They've got Burnley up front, whereas Palace have Chelsea. So obviously Chelsea, tougher team. But yeah, with goalkeepers, I look to get 3 points a week from them. Anything more than that is a bonus. So it's the 2 points for playing, and then maybe they make 4 or 5 saves for that extra point. Other than that, yeah, I mean, take your 3 points and go. But if we are looking for a cheap option in goals as well to add to the 4.5 category, look at Kyle Darlow. He's also at 4.5. And Martin Dubravka's injured, so Darlow is going to start. Yeah, and then they're playing West Ham first, West Ham without Jesse Lingard, and then they've got Villa without Grealish, and then they've got Southampton without Ings. Very interesting sort of fixtures for Newcastle. But yeah, Kyle Darlow. I had Raya, and then I just thought a left field pick would be someone like, and this is just only for the first 3 games, is someone like David De Gea. If you want to go and spend 5 million on a keeper, which I don't believe you should, go with Dave, because he's going to start. That's the problem with United keepers right now, is you don't know who's going to start. But Hendo is sick. Hendo's got COVID. No, but Hendo's got COVID. That's why.
Oh, okay. So David De Gea is the one. So none of you guys named the. So obviously Cyrus named Martinez. He scored the most points last season. Edison was second at 165 points, but he costs about 6 million. Hugo Lloris was third. Nick Pope of Burnley, even though they have they're very expensive. Nobody named those big name, big club keepers. Is this not a situation where you pay premium for one and then you can pick a Bachmann of Watford, or is it just go cheap?
That's been my tactic. But remember, AB's the one who won our league, so it's really important to understand. Potentially do the opposite of what Cyrus does. But my thinking has always been buy a keeper who will generally be there. And, somebody like Martinez isn't sitting at a 6 like a Edison. But I think he's a good option. But, even somebody like Meslier, he's a really good goalkeeper, does quite well. But then I look at, exactly. I think it's the same price as Martinez, if I remember correctly. Martinez is actually 5.5.
Oh, wow.
But yeah. But then look at the opening fixtures, and that's the other thing. So you don't necessarily want to be putting a goalkeeper in there who's playing like a United, who will probably put a couple of goals past him. And I think that's the key thing.
Okay, one last point on the goalkeeper. My strategy is always just to pick a guy who's going to last the entire season. So even if he's playing United, because I saw that and I was like, I'm not going to drop Melie for that, but I had to fix other situations. So for me, that's the thing. I'm picking a Brentford. I don't think Brentford's going down. Even if they do, if I can get about 120 points from my keeper, that's it. That's pretty much all I can get. But because of how great how I think David Ray is, and then I've got Sanchez in case Brentford starts shipping 6 and 5.
It flames out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they become the new Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, they've got the same kit. You know, when I was choosing my transfers, like, oh, Sheffield. There you go.
It's not Sheffield. They sold Kamukhela Mokocha, but I'm still supporting them for this season. So Finn on YouTube says he picked Sanchez as his goalkeeper, so he can use millions elsewhere. Often not many clean sheets at the beginning of a season. That is true, and clean sheets are going to be important, and that's why the bigger money keepers are there. So if you want to go for that, you can go for that. Just know that at other ends of the field, you'll find yourself in this situation. But
having said that, Paul, just to make one last point there, if you're looking for a keeper who's likely to actually get quite a number of clean sheets, Mendy at Chelsea would probably be the guy. But you know, the cost and all of that might be
6 is too much
prohibitive. You know,
and also they've got Arsenal and Liverpool within their first 3, so it's fine to have now. But you know, it's a long term.
The controversial things will come because there's things that I would say about those fixtures.
Yes, because they've beaten Arsenal in the last 10 days, and I think I don't know who else they beat, but Chelsea look good. So moving on to the next category, defenders. Very, very interesting one because people have different ways of doing it. In the defensive category, you've got the 2 Liverpool right and left backs, 7.5 and 7. First question I'm going to ask you guys: are they worth it? And then we're going to move on to what we're thinking from a must-have perspective. Are those 2 guys worth it? I know Robbo is injured. Do you go for the other one? Or do you go for both and spend 15 on them entirely?
Nope. I wouldn't touch those Liverpool players with the stick. There are so many other more or equally attacking options out there for less.
But why don't you start with how you look at your defenders? Because that's the thing we did last season.
So
asking the question, do you put a defender there or do you put somebody who's more attacking? You know, like
so it depends, and I'll use a real life example here. So I'm looking at my team of defenders. So of my 5 defenders, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them are fullbacks, and 1 is a centre back. And that centre back for me is something I think we should all jump on as a bargain purely because he's so cheap, and that is Amati from Leicester.
Oh, yes.
He costs 4 mil, and he's come in for Wesley Fofana, and he's going to play.
Yes.
And you know he's only owned by I think 11% of people, and you know Leicester are a great team. You know they've got the Pereiras, they've got the Castañas, they've got the Schmeichel in goal, who's a good goalkeeping option as well.
Ryan Bertrand as an option on the right.
They've got Ryan Bertrand, So it's always good to have a few Leicester players in because you know come end of the year they're going to be 6th, 5th, 4th, and then if they're 4th they're going to drop out because that's what Leicester do because they don't deserve nice things apparently. But so I generally go with fullbacks because they're the guys bombing up the pitch. I would say if you're going to invest with a Liverpool fullback, go for it, but then you need to find a 4 million rand or 4 million pound player because. Yeah, you know, it's so much money. You could get a guy like Kai Havertz for £1 million more than Trent or Robbo. I don't know who's more expensive. And that's the thing.
But here's the thing with those 2. They've been consistently at 150 plus points or 160 plus points for the past 3 seasons. They're that good. And if you need points, they will get it to you. They will get it for you. So that's the conundrum I had. But my thing is similar to AB's. I go 5, 4.5, I go for wing backs. So Luca Digne moving to, I think, 6 became too expensive. So then I went, I considered a guy like Aaron Cresswell, who is still a lot of value for West Ham at 5.5. But if you want to have West Ham exposure, but you can't pay for 5.5, Vlad Kufal. A lot. I think he's taken by 16% of the people. He's the guy, I think. So in my team, actually, I've got Target and Kufal in the same team, because I was like, look, might as well take the guys up there. But here's a question for you, Sai. Reece James. What's Reece James's role? Are we still keeping that 3-5-2 or 3-4-3? Is he going to be playing in those high things? And then who's your left back at Chelsea? And can we consider Ben Chilwell, even though he's at 6?
Chilwell's always my pick, especially if you look at him. Reece James is a fantastic player, and I do think that I'd pick him in any general team. But the biggest issue that you have with the Chelsea conundrum as such is that he plays the same position as Cesar Azpilicueta, and if you're not playing 3 at the back, then you don't necessarily have space for a Reece James to play a right wing back. If you're playing 4 at the back, then really it will become a toss-up between Azpilicueta, who's the club captain, and Reece James, who's a great player for his age. So I in that instance, then have gone specifically to Chilwell, who is Chelsea's left back. It was just that, given certain circumstances, they'd looked at, okay, fine, Alonso's a little taller, he'll give us, some attacking impetus and what have you when it comes to, sort of really searching for goals. But I think that one thing to always consider is, especially with some of the Chelsea players in particular, it's taken them a season. This is now their second full season in the Premier League. We're going to see more of a return from them. And somebody like Chilwell, who's played in England all his life, is adjusted to the system now. So I think Chilwell will be a really good selection there, though he is relatively expensive. But much like everybody else, I try to find fullbacks. Creswell is one of them. Ayling is one of those at Leeds who he racked up a lot of good points. And then if you're looking for somebody really, really cheap, and not a lot of people know what you'll get from him, is Tino Livramento, who was from the Chelsea Academy, who just signed for Southampton.
Southampton. Okay, we'll look for him. Here's another one from Tepo on YouTube. He says Ashley Young 5.0 scored in preseason for Villa. I know you are against it, AB, but I think it's quite tasty. He's a defender. He can play higher up in the field, can come into the midfield, give you options for goals at the back if you don't want a Matt Target.
But then you've got Matty Cash as well. So,
but Matty, so that's the question of how this team's gonna fit. But I think they might go higher. Temple also says don't sleep on Villa and West Ham. That's another one.
And that's something I was going to say, that there are 2 teams that people have not necessarily been focusing on. That's Villa and that's West Ham. West Ham in particular, I have my reservations about, because they haven't necessarily strengthened the team. It's basically come as you were and let's see how things go. And I think they're still looking for a couple of deals, so they'll probably only get players across the line maybe next week or so. Villa in particular are one who will have some very interesting midfield stuff, and I'll talk about that just now. But I do think that somebody like Ashley Young could be quite a good purchase, not because they'll use him. If he's listed as a defender, then he's going to be a massive bargain.
So here's a tip, I think, for everybody. That left side of Aston Villa's front 3 is quite interesting, because obviously they bought Ings. Watkins is unavailable, could be unavailable. But the most important one is Leon Bailey is still under quarantine. He's not going to play. And I would have assumed Leon Bailey would have either taken one of the flanks. That gives a guy like an Ashley Young, if they don't want to go Traore, an opportunity to sit up high and play in front of Matty Cash if they want an extra defensive option.
He's playing in midfield. He's playing in midfield.
Yes.
I think that we're going to see Ashley Young playing in midfield. And that's because, in essence, this is his sort of, welcome back, goodbye tour, right? In the sense that, because he's no spring chicken by any stretch. And he's still got a good left foot on him, which is exactly what they want to be slinging crosses into the box for the likes of Watkins. and I think and Ings as well. So I think Villa are really important to look at, and I think that Ashley Young will be one of those who will be listed as a defender but play as a midfielder.
Obviously, we lost Stuart
Okay,
Dallas.
so I'm gonna throw some names. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so-
Dallas is now a midfielder, which he should. Tempo says Young is the 2021-22
There we go.
Dallas. So
There we go.
about that. Dean also says, does Cyrus think he'll finish in the top 1 million this season?
Very good question. Probably not.
So,
Dean,
so,
you're
so
on an
it's-
island. Stop tweeting us.
So,
we love
so,
your
so
tweets and comments,
I've got
by
a
the way.
suggestion here in honor of Dean because he's, living his best life. So obviously Spurs face the reigning champions at the start, but they have Wolves and Watford next, and Sergio Reguilon is only owned by 2.9% of the players. So if you want a differential, he's only 5.
Yeah.
Maybe look at him.
That's
Because-
a good shout. That's a really
that's a
good shout.
very, very, but not the guy on the other side because Dean will have a heart attack.
Doherty. No, having said that, and you know how much I absolutely loved him last season, he's with the manager who made him what he was. I think Spurs are going to be should be a little bit harder to beat this season. But having said that, goodness knows.
Yeah, but I mean, if there's no Harry Kane at the front to tap
So
those
let me
goals
throw
in,
out some names who could be differentials and also could be bargains. Ben Dunk scored 138 points last year as a centre back. Value is 5. His centre back partner at Brighton now wearing Arsenal colours, Ben White at 4.5. If you're looking for a cheap defender, that Arsenal defense looks a little bit more stronger than last year, even though Pablo Mari needs to push out for Gabriel, but Gabriel is injured from the Olympics, so you'll get a lot of Ben White this season from Arsenal. I think that's a good one. And then from a differential perspective, Max Aarons
100%
won
agree.
the kid when
100%.
Watford got relegated. Possibly a bargain buy at 4.5 as well as a right back. I think this could be his season for Norwich because Norwich pretty much have Timo Pukki and Cantwell and him going for them. But obviously that clean sheet situation could be problematic for you.
But Paul, just a question on Aarons because this is so I've currently got him because it's Max Aarons and he's going to be a top player one day playing for a top club. But they've got Liverpool, City, Leicester, first 3 games. Do you wait until after that to see if his value goes down? Because there's a potential for people like me who buy him to sell him and then supply and demand, and maybe you can rake him in for 4.4. That is.
I don't know how you feel about taking defender at 4.4 in a team that's probably penciled to get relegated, but that's up to you.
But I mean,
I know that's up to you. Because I was thinking about it, I'm like, there are teams I'm avoiding this season. Norwich is one of them. Unless if they prove me otherwise. Newcastle's the other team.
It depends on the positions, though, and I think that's the critical thing because you will find that you'll get a couple of players who are pretty good in certain positions while the team struggles. I don't think we're going to see the likes of Sheffield United again, where absolutely everybody was horrendous.
Let's hope not. But I like Max Aarons as a pick. There's a guy who also did well for Fulham, played largely parts of the season. He's now at Crystal Palace, Joachim Andersen. I think he's a very good player. I like him. He's played in midfield a little bit more. I don't know how Crystal Palace are going to use him. And he's an aerial threat. He hasn't scored a lot of goals. Came out with 94 points last season, even though he played, I think, 2/3 of that season. So there's a lot more value there on the table that he did leave behind. He's my one pick if you guys are looking for a pick. That Joachim Andersen's the guy for me. There are also some nice guys at Brentford if you're looking for Brentford, but still take it with a pinch of salt. Clean sheets could come a little bit hard. You've got Matthias Janssen. Not Matthias Janssen, he's the other, but he's Pontus Janssen. Yes, I like him a lot. He played for Leeds in the season. They just missed promotion. Then he went to Brentford. I think he's a really good buy in that situation.
I've got one or two.
Yes, Cyrus.
One other. Just remember, as much as we are looking at the Villas and the West Hams, let's also look at Crystal Palace, who are under new management. And the thing is, the Palace of old was very much just don't lose this game. And so they were very difficult to break down at times, but they didn't necessarily look like they'd go and win games apart from when they played Man United on occasion. And I think that one player to look at there is, and also because of my Chelsea inside intel, is Mark Guehi, the centre back for them, who's only, I think he's 4.5. Should do a really good job. And the other thing about him is that he's actually pretty good in the air, so he might give you some goals when you're looking at set pieces and that sort of thing. So I think Mark Guehi is one to really keep an eye on, and potentially also Mitchell, who's at Crystal Palace. They've got some fairly good pricing on some of their players because no one knows what to expect from them and Vieira. So I think Palace is one to potentially look at as a bargain bin.
Speaking of new managers, we've got a question about how we look at teams with new managers. Benitez at Everton, Vieira at Palace. We'll talk about Zaha and Demarai Gray in the midfielders. But are you worried about teams with new managers, Spurs, Everton, because you don't know what they're going to look like? What's the strategy around that, AB?
Well, Everton is guys. Don't touch Everton players right now, please. Okay, look, it's Rafa Benitez. Like, you know what this guy does. He goes into a team after a big manager leaves and he screws it up even more. But yeah, don't touch Everton players. But I'm excited about
Vieira.
Yeah, I'm excited about Patrick Vieira. Yeah, so what? But the only problem is Wilfried Zaha. He's Wilfried Zaha. He hits and misses. So 1 week he'll score 4 goals, and he'll be like, "Oh, cool, Wilfried Zaha, 7 million. Let's jump on him." And then he's jumping on David Moyes' daughter again. So like, we don't know, you know.
Oh my word!
Wow. Okay.
But that's the problem. Yes, that's the problem with Palace is that they don't have striking. So where are you getting your goals from? Christian Benteke, Wolf Zaha. I mean, those guys, and Andre Ayew has got to be. I mean, they're just so frustrating.
Jordan, by the way, Andre Ayew is now in the Middle East.
Sorry, Jordan, of course. Sorry. Either Ayew. Neither of them are necessarily lighting up any of the leagues. But I think the thing is that when you look at Palace, you just don't see where the goals are coming from, and that's always been the issue: is that it's either wolf or bust. And Christian Benteke has had such a massive decline. You'd think perhaps he was putting the wrong age on his documents when he was younger. But yeah, the less said about that, the better.
Just a quick one. We have not mentioned the most owned FPL player in the game. Are we going to mention him, or we're just going to leave him?
Who is that?
Let the people. That's Roberto Carlos.
Oh, Luke Shaw. Yes, Manchester United. So I'm going with Aaron Wan-Bissaka this season. Right?
No, guys.
He got 144 points last year. I'm going AWB. Why can't I do that? Or must I go Luke Shaw?
If you're going to pick a fullback that should score you points, Luke Shaw is that guy. Because when you look at the flank that he's operating on, he's going to have to get a lot further forward than, let's say, an Aaron Wan-Bissaka who's playing on the right in front of him.
Sancho.
Right? So who's going to be slinging in the crosses?
Sancho.
But wouldn't Sancho come into that pocket on the inside?
Look, you're expecting overlap. No, but that isn't what they've been doing. And the other thing is he's not as good a crosser as Luke Shaw. So, I mean, if you like to burn your money, then go for it.
Okay, look, it's fine. Okay, I try to get AWB.
It's like signing Phil Jones because everyone's picking Harry Maguire, so we're gonna have a differential.
Hey, dude, I looked at 144 points throughout the entire season last year, and I was like, nah, this guy has to be in my team. But okay, cool. I'll do the honorable thing and get our. I don't want to call him our McDonald's ambassador in, but I'll get Luke Shaw into the team. He's done quite well.
Luke Shaw on Euro form, on end of Premier League form, not Luke Shaw.
I need that Luke Shaw
historically. I need there's two different Luke Shaws.
Okay, cool. Okay, moving on to the midfielders, which I think is going to be quite interesting for you guys. My must-haves. I think they're everybody's must-haves. I don't know how you're going to fit them into your sides. Salah, Bruno, Son, and KDB, but KDB's not back yet. So
the
do you
regulars.
fit? So how do you fit those guys into your teams? But yeah, I think because I'm like I can't afford all of them, or I can't even afford two. Okay, I can afford two, but that would mean someone else is missing out.
Yeah.
Well, if you're okay with me going first, the thing for me is then the fixture list is most important, right? Because that should determine where you make your points up front and back Liverpool up front, because their fixtures to start the season are just fantastic value for them. When you look at an opening fixture against Norwich, even if it's away, Liverpool are going to bag goals there. It's just, I think Liverpool, potentially the title race this season is probably going to be United, Liverpool, and then City, Chelsea. Because Liverpool should have Virgil van Dijk back to close to what he was before. A lot of their players got a lot of rest over the summer. So somebody like Mane and Salah have had more rest over this off-season than they've had in the last couple of years. And that's been what they've needed the most, including Firmino as well. So that's their attacking triumvirate that was really, really, really poor last season. So I think Liverpool should definitely not be discounted this season, though they have lost Gigi Van Aldum. You still have, lots of good players.
Well,
there.
Thiago's still there. This is Thiago's season.
Exactly. And this is that's the thing, So you look at that. They're playing Norwich. They play Burnley at Anfield. Then obviously the game against Chelsea, but that's also at Anfield. So I'd still back any of the Liverpool players in that instance.
Do you have both? Should people starting out have both Salah and Bruno? Because Salah's owned by 50% of the league. Bruno's owned by 48% of the league. If there's a hat trick and you have one of them and one pops, the other one doesn't, you find yourself in trouble there, AB.
No, guys, you got to have both, eh? Salah makes Liverpool tick. Bruno makes United tick. KDB's injured, so Pep could literally start whoever he wants to. Pep could start even. Like Arsenal, I mean, yeah, their number 10 is 5.5 mil. So, like,
for value.
Yeah, so great value there. Kai Havertz is a striker, as a midfielder, so you got to have him.
Actually, let's ask Cyrus about Chelsea. So, Cyrus, what's that Chelsea midfield looking like?
No one knows.
It's an intriguing one because you don't know what formation you're going to get. So let's say Chelsea play with 5 at the back, right? So 3 central defenders and then wing backs. Then that generally means you're playing with Jorginho and Kante, right?
Yeah.
Which then means that Mason Mount is probably the other midfielder who will play either next to them. Yeah. If you're going to then play, on the left of mid. If you're then going to play Havertz with Werner for now, and then Pulisic. And then you still got to fit in Hakim Ziyech, who's been very, very good in preseason. So there's so many pieces you have to try and fit into that team. That's why I'm not 100% sure. Chances are, for me, looking at the way Chelsea start the season, they might try and be a little bit more expansive. They shipped goals in preseason that they shouldn't have, but that's also when they made wholesale changes, brought on the likes of Bakayoko. That's basically like shooting yourself in the foot. Him, Drinkwater, all of those guys got game time. So I do think that you're going to see a more settled Chelsea team, and invariably it'll be the likes of Reece James, Azpilicueta, Rudiger, and Christensen with Chilwell on the left. Your midfield will be Jorginho, Kante, and probably Kovacic, but then Kovacic, Mount, and then either Mount on the left or Pulisic. So Lord knows there are so many options, but I think that's what Tuchel's going to do.
Like Pulisic is great, but I don't see him starting, and he's 8 million.
So here's a question to throw forward in a couple of, I'm assuming next game week when Lukaku's available, because his medical's taking like Arsenal time, so it seems like someone might hijack it. No. What does your front 3 look like with Lukaku in the side?
That's a mighty fine question, considering the style of play you're looking for here. Because I think this is also the critical thing, that when you look at Tuchel, he's going to be like, okay, fine, Lukaku's playing through the middle. That means we are going to need pace on the flanks. And the best that we ever saw of Timo Werner was playing as a left-sided forward, right?
Agreed.
So, you're then looking at that left flank thinking, oh, Timo, he can't dribble for anything, but man, can he cut in and give somebody a pass. And if he's not necessarily, he doesn't have the pressure of trying to make a goal for himself all the time, you could see the best out of Timo Werner. But then you could also see the likes of Christian Pulisic or even Callum Hudson-Odoi playing on that left flank. Then you look at the right, and then you're thinking, okay, Kai Havertz has got to start, right? I mean, he looked way, way better during the Champions League run. He's looked good for Germany, and so he'd probably be the guy that starts. Preseason
2 goals, yeah.
But then Hakim Ziyech is also your right-sided forward on that side. So Lukaku
what
in the
I'm
middle,
getting from you, Cyrus,
what
I'm getting from you, Cyrus, is when Lukaku comes in, get Lukaku, forget about everybody else, because you don't know who's going to start when. It's going to be Tuchel rotation. Apart from the centre-backs who are very nice, clean sheet gods, if you want Chelsea exposure to clean sheets. Human Son. Yes. Human Son. Is he an alternative to Bruno? Or because of what's gone on at Spurs and with Nuno, do we hold off? Because we know Kane's going to start. He's not going to start this week. He's probably going to start next week, unless if Nuno wants to surprise us all.
He can't play for his parent club.
But what do we do with Son this season? Is Son going to give you the points that you need? And is he an alternative to the Salah Bruno axis if you want to jump up leagues?
AB, come on.
I don't know. I don't know. I really do not know with Son. So
look, he scored on the weekend against Arsenal.
But anyone can score on the weekend against Arsenal, guys. It's Arsenal.
As he says, Heung-min Son is the star at Spurs if Harry Kane's not there. I think let's not get it twisted.
But then, what is Son without Kane? And how does that affect Son? But how does that affect him?
I think that Heung-min Son is the kind of player who has managed to make his own way in this league. He's not gotten all of his goals from Harry Kane specifically. He gets them from being the kind of player who runs up and down the pitch and makes chances for himself. So I think that you can back Son to do what Son does. I think the key here is Dele Alli, if you're actually looking at a Spurs perspective, that he will be who Nuno needs to try and really bring back to the form that he was in before. And I think if there's one manager who could potentially do that, it's Nuno Espirito Santo. But the thing is, when you look at his success at Wolves, he had a big burly center forward who was throwing himself about, and that was a big part of how he played his game. And he doesn't necessarily have that in Heung-min Son. In fact, he doesn't have that with any of his strikers at the moment. So you're really going.
Is Carlos Vinicius still there? He could do that. He looks like a big burly guy.
I guess he is a burly guy, though. Is he the right kind of burly guy? Because you saw it in games when he did play that he got into certain spots and then looked as if he'd never played football before. And I don't think you can afford to have that when you're trying to win games. So I'm not sure about Vinicius, but I do think, though, that Son is somebody you can definitely look at and say he'll play games, he'll do fairly well for Spurs if Harry Kane's not playing.
So let's look at the next tier of guys, right? That 7.5 range, 8 range, where guys are there. The Rashfords, the Greenwoods, Mount, Grealish. Who are the guys in that group that you think guys should have? Obviously, one is Jack Grealish early season because there might... Obviously, Gundogan's also there for that City team, but I think Jack's going to be used quite early without KDB. Mason Mount, I don't know how... I'm assuming from what Cyrus told me, he's probably another guy from Chelsea you can pick. But James Maddison, that group of guys... AB, first talk us through that Manchester United Greenwood... Rashford. I know Rashford's injured.
Okay.
Can I rely on Mason Greenwood to score me goals?
Yeah. So you can rely on Mason Greenwood to start to get you points. Maybe not score you goals, but he's going to be starting on that right wing or striker. depending on where Martial fits in. I think just for now, for the first couple of games, Sancho's not fit yet. Sancho's just come into training this last week, so you probably won't start. I don't foresee him starting. It will be hectic if he does. Same with Varane. But Greenwood has played preseason. He's done well in preseason. He scored in preseason.
On the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So he's also had a break with England, so he hasn't played Euros, where Sancho has been traveling with Euros and all of that. So I would invest in Mason Greenwood now. He's only 7.5. If you are picking a United pseudo midfielder who's not Bruno, I wouldn't go with Sancho right now. You don't know what you're going to get with him. And Greenwood's only owned by 4% of people. The next question is who starts up front and who starts on the other wing. Is it Martial? Is it James? Cavani is not starting, so don't put money in him yet. He's only come back now, so he's not fit. But yeah, I would back Mason Greenwood. I think last year, let me just pull up his stats. He did fairly well. 7 goals. Really not bad.
So we've got a comment here. Gundogan without KDB last season, we know how it ends. So there's an early Gundogan pick there for Cyrus. Son is good with or without Kane, so also going with that. So I look at like a guy like Zaha and Maddison. I'd always pick Maddison, but are there guys in the smaller teams with 7, 7.5, even 6.5 that you would look into? I think James Maddison's the one guy. Do we all go for Harvey Barnes? If not, or do you pick those guys? But Cyrus, you said you had some midfield Aston Villa talk that you wanted to take us through. So,
a couple of other, maybe not necessarily just Villa, but Harvey Barnes for me. And if you remember last season, it was the James Maddison, Harvey Barnes absolute catastrophe. When I had one of them in my team, the other one performed well. And I think that's always been how it goes. So I selected Maddison, so I'm pretty sure Barnes will be the guy, which means that I just swapped out Maddison and put Barnes in. I do think Harvey Barnes should be the player to back. He's got more goals in him, actually, and I think that's the thing I like about Harvey Barnes. But if you're looking for value, and I know that I think it was Wahid who actually said this, he feels like Buendia is overrated. Buendia is going to be absolutely critical for Villa this season. I don't think he's fit. He's sort of
I think he's thereabouts. Yeah.
But Buendia is an absolute must-have on the fringes of your team, because I think that Villa are really trying to make a push to be a far better team going forward for the next couple of years. Buendia will be one of the reasons why they are, because he's the kind of player who can feed strikers like Danny Ings. Because we must remember that when you had Timo Pukki, the reason he was scoring goals was because he was getting good service from players like Buendia. So, and he's really skillful. I don't see him as being the kind of Benrahma type player who is flashy but doesn't necessarily have end product. I think Buendia is the kind of guy that you want to look at. And for me, a really bargain player, if you're going to look at small team, you want to maybe fill out the rest of your squad.
Is he Senegalese?
No.
Oh.
I'm guessing Billy Gilmore.
Billy Gilmore.
We got it.
Gilguinho. Gilmore is unbelievable. Yep. He's unbelievable. And he's going to play as many games as Norwich will allow him to play. And he'll be the metronome in that team. If you watch any of Norwich's preseason, he's been central to a lot of their build-up play. Chelsea just want him to get as many games into his legs as possible, and I think Gilmore will be one of the critical pieces for Norwich, especially this season when they're going to try and stay up. They don't spend money, we know that. So that means they're going to try and utilize the assets that they have. And Gilmore will just sort of take that, metronomic, give me the ball, I'll give it back to you kind of thing. So I think we should see something from Billy Gilmore. Whether or not that translates into points is another story altogether.
Well, look, he's 4.5. So if you want to fit midfielder, you can put him in.
We know he's going to play, so he's going to get you 2 points a week, which is exactly what you need from that guy who's not your keeper. That's.
AB, what are your bargains and differentials in the midfield?
Oh man, there's so many. I made a spreadsheet.
Give me 2. Give us 2 tasty ones. Let's go.
So the first tasty one I'm going to give is so I just want to check his own 5.5% owned. No, 5.5% owned. Yeah, 8 goals, 10 assists last year. Jack Harrison from Leeds. 5.5 mil. And then
not Rafinha.
No, because he's 6 mil and he's popular.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but so it's a differential. And then the other differential I had, let me pick and a bargain. So I'm going to go with Brownhill from Burnley. 4.5 mil, 3.7% owned. Apparently he plays a lot. So
He
2 to
does.
3.
He played like
Yeah.
the entire season last year.
2 to
Yeah,
that's it.
not well.
Yeah, like I'm
Doesn't
like,
matter.
okay.
But again,
Burnley. If you want Burnley, it's either Loughton or Pope. It's nobody and Mark Wood. Like
yeah, but again, if you're looking for a filler, at that 4.5 mil, that's your guy. Yeah. Can we end this convo now, because I don't want to talk about strikers, guys. I don't.
Okay. Okay, we'll talk about them, but I've got to give you mine. Out of my Brentford playbook, Brian Mbuemo, he's going to be your second striker. He's a midfielder in FPL. He's 5.5. He scored 8 goals and 10 assists last year in the championship. He's a guy you need to be looking at. He's in my team. He's on my bench because I need someone who can do that. You can go to the other side and look at Sergi Canos. He's an assist machine, 10 assists. He also scored a few goals for Brentford in that side. Emil Smith-Rowe, if you want to have some Arsenal assets, but I say watch Friday night and then decide, because what I saw on Sunday, it's not going to work out. But the other guy that I want people to have a look at from a promoted side, Ismail Assar, scored 13 goals in the championship, also a couple of assists. He's worth 6, which is a differential pick from a Jack Harrison, because he can get you goals for Watford. So that's a guy I think I'm going to try and look at. And then I don't know about Brian Gilles, that Tottenham dude. I've watched a couple of games of his. He's pretty cool, and a good player. I just don't know what Tottenham's going to give me. So I'm waiting to see what the weekend comes up with. Okay, next topic, final one, forwards. And here's the first question from our comment section: Antonio or Ings, if you had to pick one. For me, it's a tough one. I'm going Ings because I think Aston Villa are gonna, as you said, Cyrus, it's Buendia, Ings. You're gonna see that combination a lot more, or Leon Bailey from the left getting it in, or even a Watkins coming in, trying to assist. It's gonna funnel into Danny Ings.
Doesn't it? But I think there's a question to be asked here about what Villa do we see, because Villa played with one striker last season, and they could potentially do the 2-striker thing next season with Ings and Ollie Watkins. And that's a good little and large combination. That would be a real throwback. But then it really will also depend as to what happens behind them in midfield and the like. So it's possible maybe Villa change their formation a little bit, and then we see marvelous Nakamba, sitting there and trying to make the most of it when they just have 2 defensive midfielders and then have wingers and attackers. So I'm not 100% sure what we're going to see, but I do think though that Danny Ings will always be a good punt for a goal or 2 and to get you points. But I'm not sure what you're going to see from Villa in terms of how they use him and how they use the 2 strikers.
So from a striker perspective, right? Patrick Bamford probably is a shoo-in. How do you guys work around Harry Kane? Does Harry Kane have to be in your side, or can you go with Bamford, Vardy, Watkins, or Ings? Because that's a very potent front 3 that doesn't change throughout the season.
My strikers.
AB. Let's ask AB first, because he looks like he's in a hurt locker.
Harry Kane has broken my heart, and I don't even care about Spurs. This is the thing. It's like, he's not going to play this first game. And if he does play, you've lost out because you haven't put Harry Kane in. But is he going to score goals? Is he going to be the same Harry Kane? Is he going to be professional enough? We don't know. So I have not gone with Harry Kane, which is painful, because you're looking at
possibly being punished every week in the season,
exactly,
and then having to take that extra transfer to bring him in.
I mean, Ivan Toney is the most owned FPL striker, and it's a great pick. You should all pick him because he's a quality player. He's cheap, but he's not going to go and get you 30 goals or how many points did
He
Kane?
should.
You guys don't know what Brentford's going to do to everyone
No, he's not. He's not going to get you 200 points. Is what I'm
I
saying.
love
Because
Liverpool, but Brentford are a newly promoted team, and the best of the newly promoted teams last season was Leeds, and those guys were as Jekyll and Hyde as they come. And I think Brentford will be the same. The biggest problem Brentford have is that they don't have a solid defense. They didn't win the championship last season. And I think that's a critical thing here, that when you're looking at newly promoted teams, regardless of how exciting they were in a league where you've got some of the not so great teams in it, they're going to come up against Premier League proven strike forces week in, week out. So Ivan Toney is a fantastic one to have as a forward, and especially in the first game against Arsenal, because Arsenal struggle against big strikers, and he's one of those who could bully pretty much anyone there. So I think he's a good selection. I've gone completely off the rails with both of those because I've spent in other areas. Harry Wilson, I think, is one to look at as well.
What team does he play for?
Harry Wilson.
What team does he play for, Si?
You know who I'm talking. Sorry, Harry Wilson. Callum Wilson.
Callum Wilson.
Harry Wilson.
No, Callum Wilson. I'm on board with. I got him.
Harry Wilson.
Yeah. Newcastle have a great run. That's Whew. Harry Wilson.
Harry Wilson. You mean the Welsh kid who was?
Yeah,
Liverpool. The Liverpool guy.
Did he get loaned?
Okay, so you went Harry Wilson. You went Callum Wilson.
Callum Wilson is a really, really good pick.
So we have a question here. Kane or Vardy? I think we answered this. Right now, I'd go with Vardy because we don't know what Kane's going to do. And if Kane...
I'm not sure if I'm going to go with Vardy.
I'm also not sure about Jamie Vardy. But I say this every season. I say it every season. He's too old, etc., and boom. Jamie Vardy does his thing.
Look, when your game is predicated on pace, the older you get, you don't get faster. And I think that's always been the thing about Jamie Vardy that I've been worried about. His finishing is generally fairly good, but it is reliant on him getting behind the defenders and making an extra yard or two for himself with his pace. If anything, it should be Iheanacho, who's probably going to be more influential for Leicester than Jamie Vardy from a striking perspective, at the very least.
Also, Vardy is so expensive. He's 10.5, and you could get Werner for 1.5 less. And you know Werner's going to start.
Whoa, guys. Timo Werner.
He has broken many a heart, but just remember that you score points from assists, and he assisted a lot of goals last season too. So it's not necessarily the goals that he's missed. He has scored a couple, but it's the assists that he's made, and that's why I've thought long and hard about putting Timo Werner in the team.
So for me, my team is set up for Lukaku to come in.
Yeah,
I see Kane. I love Harry Kane, but that's going to be. I'll take the points off of Son if he stays at Spurs. But my team is set up for. There's a Lukaku-sized hole that Jamie Vardy fills this weekend. If not, I'll probably find because the question for me is Ollie Watkins fit enough to start? Because I need Ollie Watkins points to start, even though Aston Villa look like they're just going to get smashed by Watford because they don't have anybody to put on the field. So that's where my thinking is. I've got Patrick Bamford because I think he's great. I'm not so sure about Iheanacho because now you've got Patson Daka now, and so I don't know how much game time he's going to get. Timu Puki looks like he's a great addition, but are we going to get the same? And that's my biggest worry. He's at 6. I'm not so sure. Gents, what are your sleepers in the forwards? My one is Aubameyang if Arsenal can find a way to get it right. But I don't trust Mikel Arteta. He's too expensive at 10. That's the big problem. And I think that's the thing. Well, for me, I'm an Arsenal fan, and I need to have hope. Because if Alba's scoring goals and giving me fantasy points, my team's doing something right. Yeah. But they haven't been able to do so. But I like Che Adams at Southampton, leading the line on his own. Any other guys there that you would think that you're like, okay, no, look at this dude?
I'm embarrassed. Okay, so
yes,
I have two sleepers. One is very interesting. and it's Raul Jimenez. But I'm going to say give it till game week 3 because they play Leicester, Spurs, United, which is tough.
Okay.
And then after that, they've got Watford, Brentford, Southampton, Newcastle. So easy games after game week 3. So let's see how he does for the first 3 game weeks. He's 7.5. He's owned by 4% of people. You know, he's Jimenez. Hopefully he's back to his best because, yeah, horror show of an injury. The other guy, I'm actually so embarrassed to say this, and it's going to be recorded, is he's owned by 1.4% of people. He costs £8 million. His name is Anthony Martial.
I fell for that trick last season. I'm not going there. I fell for that.
I'm giving him one. I'm just waiting for Lukaku. This team is I've got cash in the bank.
I fell for that one. No ways. I've got money in the bank. I'd rather save.
The only thing I know, Martial's going to play because Cavani is out. So, yeah. There you go.
Rather pick 33-year-old Troy Deeney. Might as well. You'll get more points.
How many strikers do Watford have?
They have honestly? 9. Here's a comment. On the Watford side of things, they have 9 forwards in top. So it may be worth checking who starts. I know Ismail Assar will start. There's no way. If they want to get anywhere, they'll have to do that.
I mean, Josh King is there. Like
yes, and they've got Andre Gray. It's just it's messy. So any bargains, any guys that you were like, hey, watch out for this man?
So fillers, right? If you're looking for fillers, firstly, I absolutely love Che Adams as a pick at Southampton. I liked him last season. I think he did a fairly good job. He wasn't as good a finisher as we'd hoped. Southampton's a really weird one because they've got quite a few forwards who will play. So you've got the likes of Shane Long, you've got Obafemi. But, and this goes back to my Chelsea connection, they signed this boy Armando Broja on loan from Chelsea, and he's really highly rated. The boy is really highly rated. He did fairly well at Vitesse last season, or also known as Chelsea B. And if you're looking to fill out your squad with guys who could potentially weigh in with something, Armando Broja is not a bad call. But Che Adams, I think for me is another that should really be looked at. And then, dare I even say it, from a consistency perspective in terms of getting games, look at your Burnley guys, Wood and Barnes. Burnley will stay up this season. And that will be because they just lump the ball up and make sure the big guys absolutely hammer everybody around them. So I think Chris Wood and
have some nice fixtures to start off the season. So you could get some bully ball from Sean Dyche's men there. Yeah. Okay, guys, I think that's where we're going to have to cut it off. That's where we're going to end it. That's our early season FPL must-haves, differentials, and bargains across all the different categories of players. Thank you very much, Cyrus. Thank you very much, AB. Remember, if you want to join our FPL league, in our comment section on YouTube, the link is there. Just click on that. Remember also to like and subscribe to the One World Sports Radio platform. We'll be back next week with a full CheapSeats discussing what's going on the first week in expectations, and then we'll have our usual weekly FPL picks to get guys back into the swing of things. Thank you very much to the guys who've joined, and we'll see you on the other side. Have a great evening. Enjoy game week 1. Remember, it closes on Friday night, so not Saturday. Friday night with Arsenal and Brentford, starting at 9 p.m. South African time, so you can figure out what time it is. Thank you very much, and good night, goodbye. Sale, kakakis.